And here is the Writer's Almanac for Saturday. It's June the 29th, 2019. It was on this day, 1776, the first Mass was conducted for settlers at the Mission San Francisco de Asís in the place that became the city of San Francisco. Colonists had come all the way up from Baja California. Father Pedro Font wrote in his diary when they came upon the site, "The port of San Francisco is a marvel of nature and might well be called the harbor of harbors. I think that if it could be well settled like Europe, there would not be anything more beautiful in all the world." They made a camp there, which is now the intersection of Dolores and 18th Streets, and built a makeshift chapel out of branches where the priest offered Mass just 5 days before the Declaration of Independence was signed on the other side of the continent. It's the birthday of the French aviator and writer Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, born in Lyon in 1900. Joined the French Army, where he flew his first plane. He began flying airmail routes into the Sahara Desert. He loved the Sahara. He wrote his first novel in the Sahara, Southern Mail, came out in 1929. Moved to South America to fly the mail over the Andes, and then went back to Africa to carry the mail between Casablanca and Port Etienne. Worked as a test pilot through the 30s, survived several plane crashes, joined the French Army on the outbreak of World War II. He was turned down as a pilot, which is when he began to write his best-known book, The Little Prince, published in 1943. The following year, he flew a mission for the French in North Africa, disappeared July 31st, 1944, and was never seen again. It was on this day, 1956, President Eisenhower signed the Federal Highway Act, which established the Interstate Highway System. There had been plans for it ever since World War I, when the Army decided that the condition of national roads needed to be improved for the purpose of national defense. In 1938, President Roosevelt drew up a map of superhighways. There was a model of one demonstrated at the New York World's Fair of 1939. As a general in World War II, President Eisenhower had been impressed by Germany's Autobahn system, and so he pushed through the Interstate Highway System. It was the largest public works project in American history. It took longer than they expected. It took 35 years instead of 12, and it cost about 3 times as much as they had initially budgeted. But it was done. Interstate 80, built across the country from New York City to San Francisco. It was a great boon for the hotel chains and fast food outlets. And it was a great boon for the suburbs as well. It was not necessarily good for American literature. John Steinbeck, in his book Travels with Charlie, complained about the interstate, how you are bound to the wheel and your eyes to the car ahead and to the rearview mirror, and you don't see the countryside around you. Jack Kerouac wrote On the Road in 1951, and by the time it was published, 1957, construction had begun on the interstates. Kerouac said years later, "You can't do what I did anymore." And in his book Blue Highways, William Least Heat Moon wrote, "Life doesn't happen along interstates. It's against the law." Here's a poem for today by Gary Johnson entitled A Question. His wife said, "Please be careful," and he smiled patiently and said, "Hey, don't worry about me." And he buckled right in with a confident grin, and his screwdriver touched a live wire, and he let out a cry and proceeded to die in a shower of sparks and fire. And the people who gave the eulogy spoke of honor and love and ambition. They spoke well of the dead, and nobody said, "Why didn't he call an electrician?" Paul Gary Johnson, a question used here by permission of the poet on the Writer's Almanac. Be well, do good work, and keep in touch.